Welcome to Nisreen's Art World. I'm a dancer and a visual artist with a background in graphic art and psychology. In this podcast, I'll be exploring a variety of topics, from book reviews to dance analysis, through an artistic lens. I hope you enjoy the journey. Hello, this is Nisreen. Welcome to the fourth episode of season 2 of my podcast. It's lovely to speak to you again. The other day, I found myself reflecting on how Japan and the US have managed to build a close relationship over the past few decades, despite historical challenges. For those who don't know, I'm originally from Eastern Japan and moved to a semi-rural area in the US about 2 years ago. I think many people in Japan feel a certain familiarity with North American culture, even if they haven't lived or visited here. However, sometimes perceptions of the US seem influenced more by caricatured images from movies like Fast and Furious than by reality, and often the view is clouded by the political power structure at play. I only know a small part of the US, but today I'd love to talk about the warmer aspects of American culture from my own perspective. I want to focus on what I genuinely appreciate about this country, especially my suburban space, from the viewpoint of a visual artist. Since relocating, I've been lucky enough to become part of a small yet vibrant art community, which has brought me so much inspiration and connection. Let's dive into what makes this community so special. 1. Museums as a community space. One thing I realized is that the English words gallery or museum don't fully align with the direct Japanese translation 美術館. In Japan, art museums are typically spaces dedicated strictly for art viewing, while in the US, they can also serve as community spaces where people gather and spend time together. I think libraries here also reflect this difference. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to participate in these community spaces as both a dancer and a visual artist in my area. It was also remarkable to see how beautiful the buildings are, even in a relatively small town. I grew up in an equally suburban area in Japan, and there were similar art communities. However, whenever I had a chance to exhibit my work as a non-professional artist in public spaces, it was almost always a bare-bones setup, since municipal spaces there generally receive limited funding. While I'm sure this varies by region in the US too, I've been impressed by the level of support for public spaces here. Even in a town everyone seems to believe it's STEM-focused rather than artistically inclined. 2. Art camps. It's heartwarming to see ads for art camps targeted at preteens before every school break here in the US. These programs give kids a chance to try different art forms like pottery, sketching, and painting. I can totally imagine loving that as a kid myself. In the area where I grew up in Japan, the concept of an art camp was pretty unfamiliar. I wondered if they existed in Japan, and after some searching, I found that while there are a few, they seem less common and mostly aimed at young children exploring nature or university students looking for ways to contribute to local communities. In contrast, US art camps offer a variety of programs for different age groups, from drawing to theater, includes preteens. It's a wonderful opportunity for young artists to meet like-minded peers at such an impressionable age, reducing the isolation that artists often feel, especially early on. 3. Art fairs. Earlier, I blogged about my experience at an art fair, which I found inspiring. I love the relaxed atmosphere in which artists from various genres, from pottery to fine art, showcase their work under the blue sky. Although the summer heat can be challenging, there's something special about chatting with artists and strolling among the vibrant displays on the street. When speaking with a Japanese artist in Canada, I learned that the concept of art fairs is quite different in Japan. Major events like the Tokyo Art Fair are held indoors in large event spaces, which doesn't create quite the same liberating open air vibe. Regardless, art fairs are a wonderful way to experience art in any setting. 4. Nature. Nature's beauty is universal, of course, and I still miss Japan's unique flowers and trees. But I'm growing fond of Midwestern nature too. Early summer here is gorgeous. The bright blue sky against rich green landscapes feels energizing. I can wander through fields with my dogs, feeling a wonderful sense of openness. In small streets in Tokyo, I couldn't roam freely without constantly bumping into people. And even in my hometown with mountains and rice fields, the space didn't feel as boundless as it does here. That freedom to roam fuels my creativity in such an important way. 5. Cultural openness. Wherever you are, the people around you make all the difference. I feel incredibly fortunate to be surrounded by such welcoming people. The psychological freedom I experience here is, I think, cultural too. Many Asian countries, including Japan, have a strong tradition of respecting elders, which is wonderful, but it can also be limiting. In Japan, it's often expected that younger members are different to older members in art communities, and socializing tends to be more hierarchical based on age, social status, or gender. Here, I see professional and amateur artists of different ages mingling and freely commenting on each other's work, which feels refreshing. Even though most people in my town are white Americans, I have never felt othered. There's an openness in the community, both culturally and artistically, that encourages me to express myself. Overall, I'm deeply thankful for the warm support I've found here, which has genuinely empowered me in my art. Since moving here, I feel more inspired to create than ever. Have you ever experienced a creative shift like this? What did you think of today's episode? If you enjoyed it, feel free to share your thoughts on social media or through the contact form in the description. I'd love it if you would leave a review too. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week.